New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Elzia and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And good morning, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Elzia right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit. Happens every Friday morning on the New Thought Media Network at 7 a.m. on the Mountain Time Zone. Thanks for being with us. A couple of quick shout outs. Good morning, Wayne. Good to see you all the way from Calgary. Dear Linda, yes, it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Sun's almost up at my house. We're reaching that time of the year, Z. Here it is.
Yes. I get an extra hour of sleep on Sunday.
Ministers know how important that is because we don't get it in the springtime. Everybody else seems to be able to just, roll in late to church in the spring when this happens. We don't get that option. And now here it is. We get that extra hour back. So, of course, folks, we're talking about daylight saving time. It happens this weekend if you're in North America. If you're in Europe, it happened last weekend. So, it's all good. Or maybe the weekend before, actually. But here in the United States, come Tuesday, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, make sure you turn your clocks back an hour or you'll be an hour early for church.
Yes.
And you know what happens when you're an hour early for church, right, Z?
No, what happened?
You get to put the chairs up.
Yes, well, I'm going to make sure I'm not there then.
A lot of smaller communities will get that joke. So
yes, I definitely get it.
And it's this time, Z, that we start that debate, and I'd love to hear what side of the debate you fall on. The movement in the U.S. to end this silliness, because number one, doctors say it would be much better for everybody if we all just stayed on daylight standard time. Now, remember, folks,
right.
We're currently in daylight saving time right now. We'll be moving back to standard time on Sunday morning. So doctors say it'd be best to stay on standard time. There is a federal law that states can stay on standard time permanently, but not the option to stay on saving time or permanently. There's a whole bunch of states that are willing to go to permanent standard time.
Wow.
And there's a whole bunch of other states, including Colorado, that would be willing to stay on permanent savings time. So, I said I had the S. See, you can't have the S in there. It's not savings. It's just saving. So what do you want to see? More daylight? I don't know.
Want to see less. I want to. I'm confused with all the options. But I think I like the standard time. I mean, because time is what it is. It's standard is what it is. You can't fool with it. I mean, well, you can, I guess, because we're doing a lot of it right now. But I think standard time is good. I mean, originally I think the daylight saving time was so you could. Because I think it started for workers and war, if I'm not mistaken.
A lot of it goes back to World War I, yeah.
And it's like, okay, we got a war going on now, several wars going on now. You know, let's get the standard time. Time doesn't change because we say it changed. And I would just like one time, so your body can get used to it, your routine can get used to it, and you work around it like everything else.
I think that's the biggest one. You know, everybody says it's about the big one of the, well, regardless of where it originally started, the big piece now is that it's an economic thing. People spend more during daylight saving time because it stays lighter longer, and all that. And I actually saw convenience stores are of all things lead the way in the charge to stay on saving time because people spend more at the convenience stores during savings time. Crazy stuff. Yeah. For those that are interested, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we got bigger, as they say, bigger fish to fry than to be messing around with time.
Exactly. For those that are interested, the states that have pledged to change to permanent daylight time, if Congress were to allow it: Alabama, Colorado, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Minnesota, Mississippi, Montana, Ohio, Oregon, South Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming. Now, the states that have pledged to stay on standard time, and I'm going to include Arizona and Hawaii because they don't change. Those two states just stay on standard time year round. Maybe that's why I'm never on time for a meeting in Arizona. But the states that are ready to switch to end daylight saving time and stay on year-round standard time: Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Carolina, Tennessee, and Vermont. At this point, it seems like there's pretty much, well, maybe it's kind of like Congress. We all say we're willing to talk to each other, but I don't know if we are. It seems like there's enough movement, enough states that have agreed, let's get rid of the whole back and forth thing at least. And now we're just arguing over whether we should stay on standard time or saving time. One way or the other, folks. You either get an extra hour of partying this weekend, or you get an extra hour of sleep this weekend. Please,
I'm down with sleep.
You're down with the sleep. Please don't use this for an extra hour of work. Don't do that to yourself. Have fun with it, or use it to sleep a little more, but don't use it as an extra hour of work.
Yeah. And you know, speaking of that, I think which goes great with this time topic, the Beatles just released their last song called Now and Then. So let's take that into consideration when we look at this time. Let's listen to the Beatles and say, what is the difference between now and then with this time change?
Well, the difference between now and then is two members performed live on that, and two members performed from beyond the grave. I saw that article. I thought, and I laughed about that as well. The Beatles are coming out with, and both Ringo and Paul have said this will be the last Beatles song. And my thought was, there's a little caveat in there that says, depending on how well it does.
Yeah.
The idea,
because I'm sure they have lots of studio stuff.
If it does really good, we might do this again.
Yeah. You know, because people are nostalgic, and people, I mean, the Beatles was such a revolutionary group in the time period in the 60s, and when they came out, and their consciousness was so contra-culture, if you will, at the time. You know, it was peace and love and meditation, and you know, and we need some of that now, quite frankly, a little bit more of it anyway, because we look around the world and it's like, oh my goodness, what is going on? So we need some comparison between now and then and do an assessment. I'll just leave it at that.
To leave it at all right. Hey, speaking of time, and we've got some great comments in the comment box today, folks. Feel free to chime along and chat along. Yes, nature does not require clocks. Absolutely. And we do have someone, Facebook is not identifying you. My apologies. So confused with time. When I lived in California, my parents were in Arizona. Exactly. Arizona never changed time. God doesn't live in time either. Exactly. And we talk about that in New Thought all the time. We're always talking about that, right? There is no time or space in the mind of the divine. However, it does make life, maybe a little bit easier for the most part here in human time, in the human experience. And our next story is all about doing time in the human world. For those that may not have heard, you like what I did there, Z?
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Sam Bankman-Fried was found guilty yesterday of 7 counts of fraud. Some are calling it a stunning fall for the former crypto billionaire. Others are saying that this is just cause and effect. If you try to cheat the system, you're really cheating yourself. And Mr. Bankman-Fried could spend the rest of his life in prison on just these 7 charges. You were talking about this a little bit this morning. Z, tell us what you know.
Yeah, well, first of all, the dude is only like 31, 32. I don't know when his birthday is. And, to think that this young man was wielding this kind of power was, they say it's the biggest scam since Bernie Madoff, and we know what that was. And he hasn't even begun to see the civil suits. They're even looking to sue his parents, who were 2 lawyers at Stanford, for benefiting from this and saying that they knew of it or whatever. Now, it may be hard to prove that, or maybe not. But think about, there was some lucky people who, at the original pricing, that thing was 18 cents a share. Imagine someone who put in $100 and it went from 18 to 4,000 a share. You put in, if you put in $1,000, you'd be in, and was able to check out and not get greedy thinking it's going to keep going. Yeah, that was a nice investment at the, and it's going to be interesting to see how cryptocurrency does after this. It's still around, Ethereum, and they got all these different brands of crypto. And I don't think anyone really understands it.
And it seems like, most of the people that aren't in the industry don't understand it for sure. My experience. Yeah. And I'm reminded of that saying, if you claim to understand quantum physics, you don't understand quantum physics. I think we have the same thing here. If you claim to understand crypto, you don't really understand crypto. And and let's be straight up. This was pretty obvious. I don't see this as crypto's fault. I think he took advantage of the fact that people didn't know what crypto was. Right. But at its very basis, they started the exchange, FTX exchange, and from the first day on, he told his other collaborators, his other founders in this exchange, okay, my clearinghouse gets a special deal. They get special pricing. And he gave Alameda, his original company, his brokerage firm, special deals and special rates. And that puts the average trader, if you will, or the average investor in various coins and other technologies at a supreme disadvantage immediately.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like, even though this is crypto, the guilt is pretty straightforward. Like, this seems like a pretty cut and dry financial fraud case.
Yeah.
It just it got blown up a little bit, I think, with all the numbers were so big.
Yeah. And the other piece of it is, a lot of the crypto world started in video games.
Yeah.
Because you could earn this money at coins or whatever in these video games, and then you could trade them in other games and for other things. And from there, it kind of ballooned,
Yeah. Yep. One way or the other, I think he's going to have a lot of time to consider. The U.S. government is not very kind when it comes to financial fraud.
Yeah. And especially if you're setting up a currency to go against the U.S. dollar.
Yes. And I don't know, maybe somebody out there knows more. I saw a headline go by my desk. I didn't have time to dig in too far, but my understanding is the U.S. Treasury Department has just released the first digital dollar.
Oh, wow.
So now I don't know if the Federal Reserve Bank is getting involved in this yet or not, but my understanding is the U.S. Treasury is starting to look at, well, what would a digital dollar, how would it act? How would it trade? How do we tie the value to the physical dollar? Is that possible? Once the U.S. went off the gold standard, all of our money is backed by, our promise.
Basically nothing.
Which, with the amount of debt we carry, how good is our promise? And with the amount of debt we carry and the fact that we can't get anything done in Congress. Now, this leads into our other big story of the day here, folks. The House of Representatives did approve a massive multi-billion-dollar aid package last night. It's not expected to make it through the Senate, and it's not expected to make it past Joe Biden's desk, even if it did make it through the Senate, for the primary purpose that they agreed to fund Israel only and wanted to shrink and cut funds for the IRS, leading Democrats in the Senate are saying this is a no-go. If we don't have funding in there for things like Taiwan and the Ukraine, there's no way the democratically controlled Senate is going to pass this. So the first thing the House does after getting back to work, I love how they get like a 13-week working vacation. Or 3-week or 5-week, whatever it was, right? They get like 5 weeks to hang out and really do nothing other than complain about who they do or don't want to speak for them. I don't get that part.
Well, and you left out one part there on that. $14.3 billion is the amount of money they're trying to give up.
Yeah. Now,
I mean,
we're already given $4 billion a year to Israel. 3.8, actually. I exaggerate, excuse me. We're already given 3.8 billion a year to Israel. I'm sorry, but if you can't defend yourself for $3.8 billion a year, some money's going somewhere. And we talk about financial fraud in the crypto world. I'd like to see some accounting of the financial fraud that's happening, because I know it's got to be there somewhere in the military industrial complex. War is good for those that want to skim money. And it seems like we just like to throw good money at wars, knowing somebody's getting rich off of this stuff.
Extremely rich. Because we've seen lots of articles about government waste where people are paying $300 for a screw, or and so in the military, there's not a lot of time. When these things come out, they have to move fast, right? And so money is just going down the drain, so to speak. And the checks and balances, the oversight is oversighted, and and when they do give
oversight means I'm just going to look over time. I'm going to look beyond that. We're not going to fit now. I don't have to look at those numbers. They're doing their right job. What are you talking about?
And then by the time it comes a point to do checks and balances, when you got to balance the books, you're so far removed from the incident. And, now we got to spend a whole lot of time and money to go back and chase the paper. And then we got to get a congressional hearing. And, it is a vicious cycle. And we need some legislators and some government leaders to stop this. I mean, what can we do in this country with $4 billion a year?
Well, I'm pretty sure we could put a lot of hurt on the homeless problem. We could do a lot of good. Yes. I'm going to rephrase that. Excuse me. We could do a lot of good for the people that are marginalized and living on the streets of this country without adequate health care and housing and food. Mm-hmm. We could do a lot to fix the problems with insurance and healthcare insurance in this country.
And speaking of that issue, just off the rip, is like I saw an article. There are several cities that are struggling now because of the COVID rental debacle, where people are no longer using all these buildings because people are working remotely. Some people are turning those buildings into homes and apartments that you can either live in or buy. Now, I think that's a great idea. The challenge might be they're only going to be for a certain class of people who can afford that.
Right.
Hopefully there's a program or model as these people move out of whatever they're living from previously. There's some kind of way of getting those occupied by someone who may be homeless. And here's the interesting part about homeless. And I don't know the number. I have to look this up for next time. That there are a very large number of people who are homeless that work every day.
Yeah.
And they had a medical emergency, or the landlord raised the rent, or they had some situation that caused them to be on the street, and now they can't get back in because the interest rates are high and the supply is low, and down payments are exorbitant, and so now they're stuck on the streets or in shelters, putting whole families, young kids, grandparents, in just horrible situations.
Yeah. A quick search, I show things everywhere. Different studies showing anywhere from 40 to over 50% of, and this is according to a 2021 survey, so it's not that long.
Wow.
Over 50% of the people experiencing homelessness actually have full-time jobs.
Wow.
I don't want to type in the with children to figure that out, because, and I'm betting the kids aren't counted, right? The kids aren't counted in this, because how many people living without a home and maintaining a full-time job? And that wasn't that part of the American promise, right? I'm not going to say the dream. That's supposed to be part of the promise. That if you're working and you're working diligently and you're working full time, you ought to be able to afford a home, a place to lay your head every night. And this is one of those things where I'm pledging my heart is to change in our society, and I don't know how, and we do what we can, right? But how do we change this in our society and create a new society where homelessness is a thing of the past? We say it again and again. There's more the empty homes in America than there are people living on the streets. The problem is an economic one of people not being willing. If you own an apartment complex and you're not making a ton of money, you're doing it wrong. Well, what if you owned an apartment complex and you only made a half a ton of money and gave half of it so people were off the streets? I'm all up for making half a ton of money rather than and giving people that opportunity.
Yeah. And you know, you hit me on that, and I got that curve, but I wanted to just go back. We were talking about fraud. There's another fraud case that's going on with the Trump family, and they've called both Donald and Eric to the stand, and Donald Jr. said, "Well, the accountants did the paperwork. I just signed it." I'm like, okay, what's wrong with that picture? So here again, we see the powerful, the connected, being just overly greedy, which leads to this homeless situation. A lot of Trump's empire is real estate. And you know, it looks like if this thing passed, they won't be able to do business in New York anymore.
Yeah. I don't know that would be a bad thing. Taking Donald out of the business world. I've seen a lot of commentary on this, and a lot of people are saying he's most afraid of this one. Because a big part of it is this is directly attacks his claims to fame. This is directly saying, okay, folks, this guy claims he's been a great businessman all his life, but here's the proof that he wasn't. Right. And here's the final proof that, however, unfortunately, I think he's got the far right so brainwashed that nothing's going to change their mind.
No.
He's got them so believing that it doesn't matter what they, right? He has laid himself out there as the ultimate martyr. And from day one, they're going to come for me, folks. They're going to come for me. And everything, and they're all lying, and they're all part of the problem. And he's got that side so energized and so activated on the fact that it's all a fraud, that it's fraud against him. Right. And they can't see the forest for the trees at this point.
And, you know, the interesting part is going to be with this case in New York is Trump Jr. and Eric may wind up getting some time if this thing goes to full force, because they are charged. They're looking at them saying that they knowingly helped his father overinflate his net worth so that he could get better loans and get better insurance. And I'll tell you, insurance is the most regulated thing on this planet. And if you start messing with insurance fraud, that's bad. I mean, they come at you with both barrels loaded, man. And so, you know, to think about this is going to be very interesting to see how this one plays out.
I was going to say, you can screw around with the government. That's one thing. You can screw around with the banking system. That's another thing. But don't you dare screw around with the insurance industry. Don't come after you.
They come after you.
My mind wants to say, you know, they're the modern day mafia, but I might get in trouble with my insurance company if I do. So I'm not going to say that.
No, I work for the insurance company. Don't say that.
Don't say that. There you are. Enacting change from within. Right on, brother.
Yes.
But
You
yeah,
know, and go ahead.
I was just gonna say we are at a point, and I've talked about it throughout my life. The presidential election often comes down to, and I've said it before, right? The lesser of two evils. I don't want to say that any longer because I do believe Joe has the best interest of the country at heart. Unfortunately, I think that is also part of what marginalizes his message.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a country, we have been led down a path, and that and Linda's talking to it, that Donald is the ultimate narcissist, but we've been led down the path that narcissism is good.
Mm-hmm.
That we've been led down the path that I got to get mine first. Yeah. And if I don't have $1 billion in the bank, I don't have it. I don't have enough to give. If I don't have a Rolls Royce in a high-rise apartment, my contribution isn't enough, whether it's fine. And we're all now taught to give rather than serve. It's all about how much, how much. I know I'm not going to serve. I'm not going to go actually get my hands dirty and help somebody. I'm not going to go work in a food bank or work out on the streets helping people. I just give money to it. Mm-hmm. And I can't give money unless I got a lot of money. And the whole thing is just a total mess. I want to get back to, how about some tax credits for documented service?
Mm-hmm.
State or federal? How about some support for spiritual communities that are doing the work? And our dear friend Linda dropped a comment listening to Reverend Michael Gott, good friend of ours, actually. We both know Michael very well. He's at Unity of Houston, talks about how they've been a significant part in reducing homelessness in Houston. What if we start supporting the companies, the organizations, the communities, the spiritual organizations that are doing stuff, rather than continue to donate our money to politicians that just want to then give our money to support war and send money overseas?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because everybody now, there's one word that I'm beginning not to like that much, and that's deserve, right? Because I think it's being used very inappropriately.
Right.
Everyone definitely deserves a safe place to live. But what made me think about it is the people giving money. Oh, I got this Rolls Royce. I deserve this Rolls Royce. Well, what exactly did you do other than you worked for it? But that don't mean you deserved it. I don't think the understanding of the word deserved is really understood. And definitely everyone deserves a place to stay. Now, and it doesn't have to be a penthouse on Park Avenue, but a decent place to stay to raise a family. And we have to figure that out some kind of way, or else, we're tearing up the fabric of this country by having a permanent underclass who has no investments, who has no place to stay, who's working paycheck to paycheck, and can't afford to get sick because they'll just go deeper and deeper into a hole.
Yeah, exactly. Folks, we don't pretend to have all the answers around here. But we believe that if we're not talking about these things, the answers aren't going to show up.
Yeah.
If we're not talking about these things, somebody out there is having an epiphany right now. Somebody's saying, wait a minute, what if we did this? Wait, what if we did this? And I absolutely confident we have to have conversations that shine light onto the darkness. Because the darkness is not the absence of light, or excuse me, light is not the absence of darkness. Darkness is simply the places where we're unwilling to shine the light. And now more than ever, it's time for people like us to shine that light. Oh, I mentioned in the pre-show, for everyone out there that says Marianne Williamson doesn't have a chance, a snowball's chance in hell, to Marianne's up to 16% with voters leaning Democratic. Now that's not, that's not confirmed Democratic voters. That's voters that are considering or leaning towards the Democratic perspective. Marianne's up to 16%. We've got 1 year. 1 year from Sunday is election day here in the U.S. Yes, because of the time change and the leap years and all that crazy stuff. But we're just a year away. Now more than ever, I believe it is the New Thought voice and the voice of the people that say we follow New Thought to demand change.
Yeah.
I've been reminded recently the supply is infinite. And the supply will forever fulfill the demand. The question is, are we making the demand? Yeah. Are we making the demand that we want the infinite supply to fill the coffers of the nonprofits that are doing good work in the world? Are we making the demand that we want to, of what change we want to see in our democratic process, in our legislative bodies, in the people that are serving?
And you know, when you talked about the percentages, I just had to pull up a quick poll on the Republicans, and I'm not sure when this one. This is November 2nd, right? So it was yesterday. The average of yesterday, there was 59.3% of the Republican voting bloc said that they would vote for Trump, right? The next closest is DeSantis with, I'll round him up to 13. He's 12.9. Then you have Haley at 7.6. Ramasutra, I know I'm not pronouncing his name right. He has 5.2. Chris Christie has, I'll round him up to 3. I mean, and Scott has 1.7. I mean, these numbers aren't even close. I mean, if you put them all together, they still would get nowhere close to what Trump has.
It feels like I
don't understand the appeal.
It feels like we're living in some sort of weird, crazy science fiction movie where up is down and back is forward, and it isn't even left is right. It is that, like, right is up and left is back, and almost 60% of Republican voters standing behind a man that we know is crooked.
Yeah, it's and they have, I don't know what the I think they're about even if against Biden. I mean, they got some other people. They got Kennedy still in there. They say he might get 14%. Cornel West might get 4%. They say, but if you look at just Biden and Trump, one thing, what the Harris poll said that Biden will get 49 and Trump will get 51. I mean, that's close. YouGov got them tied 42-42. I mean, this is these are things that we need to be paying attention to.
Yeah. All right, folks. Here's the word of the day. Get to praying.
And pay attention.
and pay attention and get involved. And because I'm afraid the alternative is armed insurrection. And we're in a no-win situation if at this point. If Trump wins, we're going down the road of fascist authoritarianism. And if Biden wins, we're looking at armed insurrection because they're going to just claim, oh, see, they did it again.
Yep.
They did it. They've spent 4 years telling us that the 2020 election was stolen. And boy, if Trump is the candidate and loses again, all hell breaking loose.
Yeah. And if it's as close as these numbers indicate that it might be, oh my goodness. And they've done a lot of gerrymandering on districts and,
who do we know? Who do we know that's studying constitutional law? Who do we know that's like in school for learning government? Because we might be needing a new government. we might need to burn this thing to the ground and start over. That might be what's happening. I don't know.
Yeah, it's getting tough.
I don't want to say Linda's saying sadly we could be watching the deterioration and fall of democracy. I don't want to go that far, Linda. I don't want to say that that's what's happening. I want to say I want people to realize that that is a possibility, but it is not an inevitability.
Mm-hmm.
We have the resources, we have the people, we have all it's necessary. So
you know what you just sounded like? I was smiling because you sounded like a TV program that was on a few years ago called The $6 Million Man. Steve Austin, an astronaut, a man barely alive. But we have the technology. We can save it. That's kind of like where we are right now with our government. It's barely alive. And we really do have the technology and the know-how and the commitment to save it. The question is, can we do it? Will we do it?
Will we do it? Will we rebuild it?
Yeah.
Will we rebuild it? There's our question for the day, folks. All right. We do have to get out of here now. Make way for the rest of our programming here on the New Thought Media Network, folks. Be Your Own Hero with Sekou Writes is up next. The morning prayers follow that at 8:15. Morning Sip with Rev Melissa's at 8:30. Spanish language programming at 9 with Emma Moreno. 9:30 is our Spanish language prayer time. Practicing Infinite Possibilities with Lindsay Leinbach is at 10 o'clock. The Joy Show at 1. I'll be back at 5 with the good news. And Reverend Pastor Michael will be here at 6 with the Fireside Chat. On behalf of myself and my dear brother, Reverend Elzia Sekou, thank you so much for being with us here on the New Thought Media Network and Ministers Talking Shit. And we'll be back again and soon. Until next time, we want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.